Okay, so a couple things that I want to talk about. We'll just call this React miscellaneous tidbits. Um, and probably something you guys have seen up until this point, which you might have wondered what is uh, SASS. You guys might have heard of SASS. Um, it's kind of a modified, updated CSS. And so, CSS has been around really since the 90s, and I don't think SASS has been around quite as long. Um, SASS stands for, as you can kind of see here, syntactically awesome style sheets. And when we've used Bootstrap, you might have seen a little bit of SASS, kind of, if you're looking at the Bootstrap docs. Just about every page at the bottom of the Bootstrap docs, like if you go to just about anything, let's just pick on, I don't know, the nav bar, and you kind of go to the bottom, you kind of see that there's these variables, and that is really what SASS allows us to do, along with other things. Not just variables in our CSS, but that's kind of like the main way I've used it. So SASS allows us to kind of upgrade our style sheets to have variables in them. And I thought I'd kind of do a quick demo of how you might work with SASS and even with Bootstrap work with SASS. And so here's a Bootstrap site that I coded up last week, and I'll go ahead and stop that from running. Now on npm, if we search for SASS, we can bring it in with an npm command. So it's a dependency that we can install with npm. So that'll be kind of like the first step. npm I SASS. And kind of like throughout the history, like when you're looking at the file extension, like one of the weird things is it used to have a .sass file extension, SASS, and now it's not. You'll notice that the file extension for a CSS page with SASS is SCSS. And so that's going to be kind of the direction that we go. We're just going to install SASS, as I've just done here. And that's going to allow us to create an SCSS file. And so I'll go ahead and create a new. Now I have this components folder. It doesn't look like anything's in there. It looks like everything's right here. So right in the root here, I'll call this app.scss. You can kind of see the icon there. And so what you can do now is create variables and then reuse those variables. And so it kind of helps you with your CSS keep it clean a little bit. And again, Bootstrap uses this. Let me take a look at something here. I also want to install the Bootstrap, npm I Bootstrap. So I think up until this point, On here, I was kind of bringing in Bootstrap on my index, if I recall properly, and there's my Bootstrap that I was just kind of hard coding in. I'm going to take that out. And if I take that out, of course, none of my Bootstrap styling will be there anymore. You know, it's funny when you expect something to break and it doesn't. Oh, wait a sec. There's my, what did I just delete? Let me bring that back in. Oh, that was my icons. I deleted the icons. I'll keep the icons in, delete that, and delete that. And refresh. Okay. So my Bootstrap is kind of taken out. On the app.js, just like we would import our CSS, I'm going to import my SCSS. Okay. And I'm going to bring in Bootstrap. Again, you could do this different ways as we've demonstrated. I'm going to bring in Bootstrap kind of here with the import. Okay. So I'm going to bring in with the import command. Now if I kind of go back, that brings Bootstrap in another way. So we kind of mentioned these variables. So I'm going to set some variables. And this can be done. The way that you can create variables is with the $sign. And well, we can take a look at the docs and you can kind of see this. But here is creating a variable called font stack. Helvetica would be your kind of like your font face. And then here is using the variable, right? So creating the variable first with the $sign and then using it with the $sign. So maybe, you know, to do something kind of simple, we'll just create a variable called, you know, primary color. And then just do something like orange. And then we can just background and so we can have a CSS rule, body, background color, primary color. Okay, so this is just, I'm just trying to like spin up like a very basic SCSS file. Here's a demonstration of creating a variable. Here's a demonstration of using that variable. And you could see the basics of it. With this, you can get into changing like the primary colors in Bootstrap and changing the secondary colors and, you know, changing, you know, for example, this button is a success button, right? This button success. Well, what color is button success? Well, it depends on your SASS variables, right? If you actually get into here, you can see here the class of button success. It's actually, well, it's being set by a SCSS file, right? So you can kind of see down here, built into Bootstrap, you see some SASS going on. just in the inspect tool. So we get the color of button success from the SASS file. Let's see. Now, again, what this allows us to do is kind of to take these different Bootstrap classes and change what is considered the primary color, secondary color, and so on and so forth. So I think if I just come into here and just change this as primary, I'm going to kind of come into here and change my button to be a button primary instead of button. Now typically button primary we know is blue, and so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change the primary color from blue to orange. And I think that's what I need to do, but with CSS, things are always overriding one another. So that's always kind of like the challenge here, is figuring out, well, there you go. All right, so it's actually quite simple to kind of say, okay, well, we know the colors and the different variables here. There's a primary color, there's a secondary color, there's a success, there's an info, there's a warning, a danger, a light, and a dark. Like, these are very standard things that we use all throughout Bootstrap. And so with SASS, it's actually pretty easy to just come in here and say, okay, well, I no longer want my primary to be blue, I want my primary to be orange, and I want my secondary to be green, and I want to change these things. Notice I don't really need the background color of primary anymore. Literally just change the variable here, and we got that to work. So that's cool. So we'll do more with SASS as we go, but I just wanted to introduce SASS. I wanted to introduce SASS as a way to have CSS with variables, and at least you guys have seen it now, right? Because we've kind of glossed over it so far, and we didn't really need it up until this point, but at least we've now seen it. And to be honest with you, I don't know, as a technology, I'm just being honest, it's out there. I don't know how in demand it is. I don't know how popular it is. Like, Bootstrap uses it, but you can get by without using it. I don't really know like how important it is for you guys to like learn in depth, learn SASS, but at least be introduced to it, right? So that's all I wanted to do. And you can kind of come in here and just using this technique of like learning what are the built-in variables, and we now know how to modify those variables. You can kind of change each variable and customize it completely from the ground up. However, people have already done that. And so you might have come across this site before called Bootswatch. Remember, there's a difference between themes and templates, right? There's a difference between themes and templates. Themes are just like colors and fonts that your site will use. Templates are, like the pictures are provided, there's mock-up content, so templates are what we were using a lot for our midterms versus these are themes. Themes are just preset fonts and preset colors for Bootstrap. And so there's one site, and there are many sites, other sites with Bootstrap themes, and we can kind of take a look at these different themes. And so this is a way to very easily, you know, if you don't want to start from a template, to get a certain kind of look and feel for your site. And so I'm going to show you how to use one of these themes on your React sites. And so I kind of like this sketchy just because it's, I don't know, it's clearly not something you would use for a live site. So I'm going to use this sketchy theme on my to-do app. I'm going to bring it in with a couple more imports. Now there's actually, you know, in order to do this, I needed to install SASS, and I've done that. I needed to install Bootstrap, and I've done that. But there's one more dependency that I need, and that's the boot swatch dependency. So I'm going to stop my server from running. Control C. I'm going to do npm I boot swatch. Okay, and that's going to allow me to use these different boot swatch themes on this site. And so this is actually pretty simple to do now, where I'm going to, in this order, I'm going to kind of comment out my primary thing here. I'm going to bring in so here's kind of the import from the notes. Okay, so here's the basic idea. You're going to import boot swatch, dist, and then here we're going to put the name of the theme. Well, you just kind of, you go here and you pick the theme. Obviously we could choose Space Lab, we could choose Vapor. I mean, it doesn't really matter. So I'll choose Vapor since I'm here. And again, this kind of changes your primary colors, your background colors, your fonts. This changes everything about the theme of your site. So I'm going to bring in Vapor. So all I'm going to do is in between those, put in Vapor here. And there's actually two imports that I'll bring in. One is for variables, and this other one is just import this boot swatch. And that's pretty simple. And so if I go back to my React app and I boot it back up, npm start, so instead of, you know, manually going through and like customizing all the primary colors, all the secondary colors, and kind of creating it from scratch, you know, creating all your fonts, we can instead use one of these themes, and there you go. Now, is that exactly what I want? Probably not, but that's the idea of a theme. That's a start, right? We're changing the look and feel of our site. Kind of has this glowing effect, whether you like it or not. It's completely up to you. And so this is really easy, right? Using this SASS and then using some themes. Didn't have to write any CSS here, right? Just brought some stuff in, and that's great. And then the last kind of thing that I wanted to show you is Google Fonts. Have we talked about Google Fonts in this class? We've used Google Fonts, like on the midterm at least, right? So you've used Google Fonts in the past. So I just wanted to show how to kind of bring in some Google Fonts. Actually quite easy when you're using these import statements. So let's go to Google Fonts. The great thing about Google Fonts is they're free. and fonts aren't always free. And so this is a large collection of free fonts that are out on the web, and Google makes them available to you to kind of import. And so we're going to click on fonts. We're going to find a font that I want to use. And so here, doesn't really matter much. So I'm just going to choose this font here, Rubik. And then what you do is you have to select the font weight. So a font will kind of have like a standard regular font weight, and then they'll have something maybe a little bit more bold or a little bit less bold. This one doesn't have any of that. It just really has the standard font weight, which is considered 400. So let's go ahead and click the plus button. And then you got to click to kind of view the selected families. That'll open up this sidebar. And there's a lot of different ways that you can bring these in. And so I'm going to bring these in using an import statement. And you can kind of see down here where I'm going to copy this import statement. I can actually copy this whole line here with the import. And I'm going to paste it and delete what I don't need. Obviously, I don't need the style tag. I don't need the closing style tag. Okay, so that allows me to import the font. However, you still have to use the font, right? Just because you import a font. Now, keep in mind, it's CSS, so you always have to worry about like conflicting, right? So kind of looking here, my font is already set somewhere, from my theme, obviously, right? That font was set from a theme. So if I inspect somewhere in here, I can see the font family. If I scroll, and it's not always the first thing that you see. Okay, so here's my font family. This is coming from from a SASS file. It says font family is a variable. If I hover, you can see this is you can see the font family there in the pop-up in the tooltip. This is Lato, L-A-T-O, right? And that's coming from a body selector that this is being set. So I'm going to have to override that, right, with my font that I chose from Google Fonts. Now, here you could see how to apply the font family. And it needs a quote. So it's font-family, Rubik spray paint. And there's spaces here. And anytime there's spaces, you need the quotes. And there's a fallback of cursive. So I'm going to copy that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that on my H1. So since I set my CSS rules down here, this should use my Google font. And H1 should be a more specific selector than body. And keep in mind over here, I believe I have an H1 that's saying to do. So that should change my font of my H1 if I've done this correctly. And there you go. Now I'm using that terrible looking font, but the job is done. Cool. So again, just kind of want to keep this one a little bit quicker and show you some SASS, show you some variables in SASS, show you how to do some themes and some Google fonts. And that's kind of it. Nope, I lied. There's one more thing in the notes. We use Bootstrap icons, which are great. And if you remember, Bootstrap icons we hard-coded the CDN for the Bootstrap icons. I'm going to take that out. And that will obviously get rid of my Bootstrap icons here. There is another icon pack that is really nice in React, and it's just called React icons. You go, oh my gosh, okay, there's font awesome icons, there's Bootstrap icons, there's React icons. How many icon packs are there? Well, the thing about React icons is that it's a very large library that includes other libraries. And so inside of React icons, what you'll find are all the Bootstrap icons. If you want the Bootstrap icons, you have them. Inside of React icons, if you want the Font Awesome icons, here's all your Font Awesome icons. If you want hero icons, what are hero icons? I don't know. Let's look. These are a bunch of hero icons. So the reason why I think React icons are awesome is because they're inclusive of all these other libraries. And so React icons, to install them, npm I React icons. So we need to install the dependency. So let's start by installing the dependency. npm I for install React-icons. And so now if I look for the trash can, I got all these different trash cans. And so what trash can do we want? Man, we've got lots of options. Let's go with BI trash. Now, what's interesting is it should, I don't know what pack it is. So BI, so Bootstrap is not BI. Box icons. So BI is box icons. And if I kind of, there's my BI trash. Okay. So now to use that icon, we need to import BI trash from React BI. So let's copy this. Let's go to my app.js. I think I copied that. Copied to clipboard. And let's paste. Now the icon name we said was BI trash. Capital B, capital T. So icon name is BI trash. All right, and then that allows us to now have an element called BI trash. So we need to find our button that was putting the delete button. This was right here. Here's our button. And here was our icon that is a Bootstrap icon that we deleted. So now we have BI trash. It's its own element. And voila. Let's spin it back up. npm start. And we should get our new icon. Voila. Maybe I like my old icon better. Well, cool. So that's about all I wanted to show here. Now, just one little side bit. Anyone know what's going on with my background gradient? Why is my gradient going like repeating? Yeah, that's right. It's because it's a background image. If we inspect on the body, we have a linear gradient as a background image. And that background, the repeat, when you have a background image, the default is for that to repeat. So we might turn that off in our SCSS. We'll go into our body, set background repeat, no repeat. Going back to the early days of CSS. Okay, and what you then have is background color. So you're going to get the one gradient, and what you don't, this is backwards. What you want to do is you want to have a background color that kind of matches this blue color down at the bottom. So what I need to find out is what is that blue color that's at the bottom, and it must be this shade right here. I believe that is the correct shade. So I'm going to change my background color to be this shade right here. And I think that's going to be the end of the gradient shade. So I'm just basically going to change my background color to be like whatever it fades into. And I believe it's this color right here. So let's kind of set the background color to be that piece right there. Let's see if that matches. There we go. And still not exactly what I want. You want to set that gradient to be larger, maybe set the body to have 100% viewport height, whatever you may want. But that kind of fixes that. That's how you fix that problem. All right. Odds and ends. These are all little tidbits that you could add to your projects, right? None of this is required, but just all things to consider.